Starting right now, The Rita Panahi Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Rita Panahi Show. Coming up tonight, moderate Liberal Andrew Bragg continues to cause unrest within coalition ranks after his National Press Club address. My panel will cover that and the day's other top headlines. A transgender player given the green light by the AFL to take to the field in a women's competition. I'll get Stephanie Bastian's reaction to that. Army Horowitz will have the latest from the US, including the US withdrawing troops out of Iraq after more than 20 years in that country. And Rosie O'Donnell tattoos her child's pronouns on her wrist. Kinsey Schofield will have all your entertainment and royal news. And Lefties Losing It features this WNBA head coach having a little meltdown.
The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win.
But first, a coalition split has emerged after moderate Liberal Andrew Bragg announced sweeping policy positions that had not gone through the shadow cabinet. Only 2 hours before Senator Bragg's address to the National Press Club, Nationals leader Matt Canavan said he was confident the coalition won't be touching working holidaymakers. But in Bragg's speech, he specifically nominated that cohort as one that could be cut to lower the net annual migration rate. Senator Bragg also spoke expansively on policy, including a call to rebalance income tax, GST, fiscal management, deregulation and energy, all of which wasn't approved by Shadow Cabinet. Let's bring in Menzies Research Centre Senior Fellow Nick Cater and News24 contributor Louise Roberts. Nick, exactly who was Senator Bragg appealing to with this speech? Because it seems to have upset a lot of people. It's upset the Nationals, it's upset Conservatives in his own party, people in regional communities and business groups.
A bit of a mystery to me, Rita, I must say, who he's trying to appeal to. He talks about the radical centre. I'm not quite sure who this radical centre is. I don't think I've ever met any of these people who are both radical and from the nominal centres. Look, I really don't know. I think there were some very useful things in that speech, by the way, that have been overlooked, and that's a shame that by freelancing, by getting out of his lane, people have overlooked the really solid stuff about getting rid of a lot of the regulation around building housing that's preventing us from having housing. And 180,000, I think, was his figure for migration. Well, you know, let's have the details. And if it's going to mean cutting working holiday visas for backpackers and so forth, then I think there's an issue there because, you know, as you know, in the country, there's a lot of jobs that we need doing that Australians are not prepared to do. I mean, for instance, abattoirs, for instance. I think every abattoir in Australia would close down if it wasn't for this migrant labour. So I don't know, maybe it's a call for us all to go vegetarian or something. Basically, it's got to be thought through very, very carefully. And, OK, it was a start from Andrew Bragg, but I think we need a lot more work on this policy before we come to any firm conclusions.
Louise, I don't know if going vegetarian is going to work because we need those holiday makers, the seasonal workers, to also pick our fruit. So that's the regional communities do depend on them. And I wonder is this going to put pressure on the National Liberal Coalition because farmers and people in regional communities really need those seasonal roles filled. And I do wonder why Senator Bragg would be so reckless. He would know that what he was saying was going to cause waves with his national colleagues.
That's right. It puts him directly at odds with the Nationals. You're absolutely right, Rita. And if you go to those rural communities where you've got not only the abattoirs that Nick mentions, but the vineyards and the fruit picking and everything else, they completely rely on migrant workers and they build an infrastructure in the local towns to support that, the housing, the advertising, the local food industry, etc. So that's really run on the migrant population that are coming into Australia. So unless he wants the food bowls of, say, New South Wales, something like the River Rita, to completely implode because there's no workers there to pick the fruit and look after the vineyards, then I don't understand his reasoning here at all. It's a very dangerous precedent to set, to be freelancing in this way. And yes, he's been slapped down by the party, the opposition leader, Angus Taylor, but it's a mystery to me why he would do that and really cause such division with the Nationals, who they clearly need on side.
I do wonder whether this is the start, Nick, of a challenge to Angus Taylor's leadership. Is he just testing the waters to see what the mood is like in the party? I'm not suggesting he's going to challenge personally, but just to see, because you've got to say the opinion polls aren't doing well. The last news poll released this week was pretty disastrous for the coalition.
Well, they're not great, right? I mean, nobody's pretending the polls are great, but nobody's pretending either that there are quick fixes to this. I mean, Angus Taylor said when he came in, it's going to be a long-term struggle to get the party back in contention. Obviously it is. I don't think that there's anybody serious within the parliamentary party that I've heard of that's calling for a leadership change. I mean, I don't see how that's actually going to fix anything now. They've got to get down, they've got to dig down, do the policy work, and that's what Angus Taylor has been doing. His colleagues have been full of praise for him for the policy work he's done. He's got to do a lot more getting that out there, selling that message, telling people what's on his mind. But, I mean, I don't really think... I mean, I could be completely wrong on this, Rita. I've been wrong before. I don't think there's any serious policy, any leadership challenge, and certainly not from Andrew Bragg. I don't see him as a future opposition leader just yet.
Now, finally, on Senator Bragg, he's also upset Australia's peak hospitality and accommodation bodies. He said that the country needs fewer pastry chefs and baristas and more tradies. Well, the Australian Hotels Association national boss Stephen Ferguson said, "We don't appreciate cheap shots against occupations such as chefs, especially in regional Australia. The need for overseas workers is paramount." Now, opposition leader Angus Taylor was on Peter Credlin's program last night, and he couldn't commit to a migration ceiling, but said it would be lower than 180,000.
It will be well below 180,000. It will be a number that will be real. I tell you, Labor's targets, they've never met them.
Louise, at what point do they need to determine what that number is and start communicating it? Immigration is shaping up to be an enormous issue in the coming election, perhaps the key issue given its impact on so many other areas.
Well, the time is now for that number. The fact that Andrew Bragg thought that he could come out and say at the press club that we need to be under 180,000 shows that Angus Taylor needs to be party leader and actually come out and say, yes, this is what our target is, this is what we're going to do, because the immigration-migration debate is absolutely toxic in this country at the moment. It affects every level, from housing to housing affordability to infrastructure to education, everything. It's the number one topic, apart from cost of living, that people are talking about. So it's a missed opportunity if Mr Taylor does not actually come front and centre and say, this is our number, rather than someone else in the party saying it for him.
Now, the Japanese government has released its first public statement about the melons saga, noting it had been assured by the Australian government that the Prime Minister's comments were misrepresented. However, the statement released by the embassy in Canberra stopped short of saying whether the Japanese believed that assurance. And there are apparently frustrations internally, with several MPs telling the Australian Financial Review that the PM's denials could damage him and the government. Nick, this has just been such an unedifying and frankly avoidable mess. It was such a stupid thing to do, but once it was done and out there, a simple acknowledgement and apology would have gone a long way.
You'd think we had nothing serious to talk about in this country. We've been absorbed for weeks and weeks and weeks on this stupid podcast. Melongate, of course, blew up at the start of the week. It's going on and on. This is not good for the country. It's certainly not good for the Prime Minister, who just looks grubbier and more invasive by the day. If he had any sense whatsoever, he'd go out there, the big mea culpa, clear the air, apologise to the Japanese Prime Minister, apologise to the Japanese people, and probably apologise to the opposition who've been demanding this apology all week, and just get it off the table. Look, it was there in question time again today. No doubt it'll be bubbling along every time he appears until he makes a, let me say, a clean breast of it, if I may say it that way.
Oh, dear. Louise, I've got to say, the female ministers, powerful senior ministers who've willingly embarrassed themselves in recent days, Claire O'Neill, Tanya Plibersek among them, just with this blind, dutiful support of the Prime Minister. They know precisely what he meant. There is no ambiguity here.
Yep.
The innuendo was clear for everyone to see.
Absolutely.
And their gaslighting of the nation, saying, oh, no, have a look at it. You can tell that's not what he means. It's been misrepresented. I mean, give me a break.
Absolutely, give us all a break. I mean, Albo's angels, being wheeled out to defend the indefensible, or Stepford wives, or whatever you'd like to call them. But the innuendo is there. So if there's no innuendo, what's the joke? That's the other part of this that he hasn't really explained. What's so funny about this? And every time he's asked about it, he sort of says, we've got a wonderful relationship with Japan, with the Prime Minister, with the Ambassador, et cetera, et cetera. But we know what we saw, his hand gestures, and we know what we heard. And so we've been gaslit again, not only by these Albo's angels, but by the Prime Minister himself. It just reminded me so much of the time he fell off the stage during the campaign, but of course didn't fall off the stage because none of us saw that. It's this sort of, revision of history that we can't be trusted with our own eyes to see what's actually happening in Australia. So,
and the fact that this isn't some media beat up, we had the former Japanese ambassador to Australia pen a piece about just how badly this has been received in Japan and how insulted they are. That's what's caused this media storm. So for the Prime Minister to try to pretend, oh, this is just a storm in a teacup is, again, just not fooling anybody. Before you go, there was a report in the Adelaide Advertiser that Senator Alex Antic is facing a challenge for the South Australian Liberal presidency. Senator Antic is currently the only publicly declared candidate for this role. But Nick, Liberal insiders are confident the mystery challenger can defeat him.
Who is this mystery challenger? I don't know, but I mean, aren't we talking about shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic here, Rita? I mean, the South Australian Liberal Party suffered its worst ever defeat by a long, long way in the state election. It's heading for the same result at the federal level unless it pulls itself together very, very quickly. So I don't know what Alex Antic's plans are if he becomes president, or I don't even know what that job really means, or whoever else is going to do it. But they've just got to come in with one aim and one aim only, and that's to sort out this mess. Any thought that they're in there for personal aggrandisement or to push a factional point of view or something, put that at the back of your mind, because the Liberal Party is not going to exist in South Australia for much longer unless somebody gets in and actually pulls that ship together.
Louise, this infighting among the Liberals is not helpful, and Senator Alex Antic is one of their very best performers and best defences to One Nation. So why they would be going after him is beyond me.
I agree, but the argument from his colleagues seems to be that he's too far right and he's too much like One Nation. He's too populist in a way, which is a bit of a crazy strategy to adopt, I think, when they should be actually embracing him and weaponising him against One Nation and against Labor as well. So obviously he's causing some real consternation though, Rita, because why would everyone be piling in to try and stop him and try and gag him in a way? So he's definitely ruffling some feathers. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out for him.
It's almost like they're trying to push him into One Nation, because I'm sure One Nation would be very happy to have him in the party. Louise Roberts, Nick Cater, thank you so much for your time. Now, a transgender player has been given the green light by the AFL to take the field in the Adelaide Footy League women's competition. Freya Golding stands around 6'2" and weighs more than 90 kilograms and has played in the men's competition before. He identified as a woman. Under guidelines, a player can be individually assessed if there are concerns their participation poses an unacceptable risk to themselves or other players. But in this case, the AFL's Gender Diversity Policy Committee wasn't satisfied that Golding's participation carried an unacceptable safety risk. This is despite 3 separate clubs lodging formal duty of care complaints citing several safety incidents during the season. Joining me now is Women's Forum Australia Head of Advocacy, Stephanie Bastian. Stephanie, this is frankly embarrassing. It shows the AFL's grandstanding about the treatment of women is just that, grandstanding.
Absolutely. I mean, this whole thing is a farce. There is absolutely no consideration for the safety of female players on the field. 3 clubs have launched concerns about this particular player, yet he is allowed to continue to compete. We have written to the AFL CEO, Andrew Dillon, and requested that he review this decision. I don't know why a gender diversity policy committee is making decisions about safety, but it's clearly not appropriate. But more than amending this decision, we want them to actually review their policy to stop and return sports back to the AFL teams back to single sex only. The most recent development on this case is that teams and players have said they're willing to boycott if this is not fixed. So what you have is this inclusive policy that's now excluding women and girls who feel unsafe on the field.
You're 100% right. Adelaide Footy League Chief John Kernahan has said that some clubs are indicating that they would forfeit games because of this decision. So to be inclusive, Stephanie, of one trans player who identifies as a woman, a whole lot of real women are going to be disadvantaged by these games being forfeited.
Yes, it's an absolute disgrace. And it's not even about this one individual player. It's about the precedent that is set here. And we know that in Victoria and in New South Wales, there's been an increase in male trans-identifying players being permitted onto female teams. Now, I have spoken with AFL players in Victoria, particularly from uni clubs. One told me that she had to quit university because she received such a severe injury, a concussion, she could no longer continue with the studies. Another incident involved a woman taking a mark, clashing with a trans-identifying player, and she required stomach surgery. There are serious injuries happening. And this is an absolute disgrace that they will not review this policy and fix it, because there are physiological differences between men and women. Men are stronger, they have much more height, they have much more strength and stamina. And these are all things that are critical, particularly in a contact sport like AFL.
Well, that's why we have an AFLW. That's what the W stands for, because women cannot compete with men. We are different. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. Now, this ruling has been mocked internationally, even by celebrities. We've got British actor and comic John Cleese, tennis great Martina Navratilova. They described it as madness. Stephanie, Australia really is an outlier because most of the world seems to have come to terms with this. There are still debates happening like in the WNBA, but we've got global sporting bodies having hard and fast rules about who can qualify to compete with women. But this just seems to be some feelings approach from the AFL. If it feels good, then we'll do it, never mind the impact on real women.
Yes, that's right. And I mean, at a grassroots level, there is certainly a conversation going on. We're seeing more parents and players speak up. But in terms of the leadership, they seem to be totally captured by gender ideology and they're refusing to engage on this issue. Same with the current federal Labor government. We cannot get them to address this issue. In 2022, Women's Forum produced a comprehensive report on this very issue, warning that these sorts of incidences were going to happen and they were going to grow. We sent it to then newly minted Sports Minister, Anika Wells, who's still the Sports Minister today, and she didn't respond. This has been in the press for over a month now, and she's still ignoring it. I am writing another letter to her today, but we have had inaction on this because I think our governments are cowardly and they're totally captured by gender ideology.
They absolutely are, and so is the AFL. And you mentioned earlier you've written to the AFL CEO, Andrew Dillon. We'll check in with you next week to see if he has responded to your letter and whether this insane decision is going to be reviewed. Stephanie Bastian, thank you so much for your time tonight. Still to come, lefties losing it, plus the latest from the US, including US troops withdrawing out of Iraq after more than 20 years. Army Horowitz is up next. Welcome back, and it's time for Lefties Losing It. The WNBA better be ready because the big, black, beautiful and sometimes trans women are coming. Former NBA players and first-round draft picks Enos Freedom and Royce White are ready to play. You want it to be stupidly woke and inclusive, and well, guess what? they are going to nominate for the draft. Let's have a look at Ines Cantor Freedom, who posted this update saying, let the transition to the WNBA begin. And he had this cute little video. Yes, she is getting ready to compete. Looks match fit to me. And he's nominated for the WNBA draft.
It's official. I just declared for the 2027 WNBA draft in April. Join me in this journey.
The WNBA does not ban men who identify as women right now from playing in the league.
We would dominate the WNBA without batting an eyelash.
The #1 prospect in the history of the WNBA.
Exciting times ahead, but our brave and stunning and sometimes trans women are facing discrimination, including from CNN, who spiked an interview with Royce White for no good reason. The bigotry is astounding.
Set to do an interview with CNN at 5 p.m. Central, and around 2, 3 o'clock, they messaged me and said, we're canceling the interview. We have other news. That's the universal excuse. We have other news. And I just, for the life of me, again, they're not giving black women a voice. Sometimes identifying as trans black women a voice on CNN. It's just blows my mind. It's disappointing.
They're not giving sometimes identifying trans black women a voice. It's disgraceful. Now, this may be the most unhinged performance you'll ever see at a press conference, a self-serving, table-thumping, incoherent, contradictory meltdown from the Indiana Fever head coach, Stephanie White. But before we look at that, let's see what inspired this episode. As we discussed earlier in the week, the attacks against Sophie Cunningham haven't just been off the court, she also copped this clothesline tackle. And the culprit there, Dejonae Carrington, immediately played the race card and claimed white privilege was behind the flagrant foul being called. She tried to backtrack from that, but we all know what she meant. Now, instead of standing with her player, Sophie Cunningham, who was left bloodied after that flagrant foul, the Fever coach decided to talk about what a great player the aggressor was, how she works her butt off. Listen to this and watch the reaction of her players.
I don't think that Dejonae intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck.
May well Caitlin Clark hold her head in her hands. Now, this is nothing new. Stephanie White threw Sophie Cunningham under the bus the previous week when she was asked about whether men should be allowed to compete against women.
What is your stance on men or athletes who test as biological male participating in women's sports? What's your personal stance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint. I don't ever believe that exclusion is an answer. I just don't.
Yep, you've got a fully formed adult woman there working in professional sport who apparently can't work out that men are bigger, faster and stronger. But all of that pales in comparison to this meltdown now that the coach has rightly copped criticism for not defending her player, particularly when she was clotheslined on the court. So she decided to deliver this dementedly delicious table-thumping performance. Now, she starts off with what sounds like a straight-out lie, claiming she didn't see the foul, though, as you can see in this image, she's looking right at it.
For those who have anything to say about the play in the last game, I didn't see the play in real time. I went straight to a press conference. I thought the play got called right. Thankfully, Sophie's okay. I take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my players back. I ride with them 10 toes down all the time. All the time. The reality is, with me, I will always lead with love. I will always lead with grace. I will always lead with humility. And I will always lead with integrity. Doesn't mean I'll always get it right. I'm also human. The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win.
Loud noises. If I just thump the table, people will forget that I'm disingenuous, weak and woke and threw my player under the bus. But I've saved the best for last. Listen to the incoherent, contradictory way she ended this little rant.
When they go low, we go high. Love will win. Grace will win. Humility will win. And kindness will win. I stand by them. I will always stand by them. Everybody else can go to hell.
She literally in the space of 10 seconds went from the Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high, from I will always lead with love, love will win, and kindness will win, to everyone can go to hell. Incredible performance there from Stephanie White. You know what? If she really had her players back, she may have said something about these next two. These are New York Times journalists Madeline Hill and Charlotte Wilder, who launched this unhinged attack against Sophie Cunningham because she dared stand up for women.
Sophie Cunningham has just continued to fan the flames here.
Yeah.
And she most recently posed with Riley Gaines, who was a swimmer, not even a very good one, who is super anti-trans women in sports.
I just think that she knows what she's doing, and she knows that ultimately her basketball career is only going to be so long. She's not the best player. She's not. Oh, great. Now we have another mouthpiece that can distract from all these other things that we're doing that are horrific, like snatching people off the street and murdering people on the street.
There you go. No one hates a strong woman more than weak, self-loathing leftist women. Now, let's go to this beautiful bit of footage from NBC where their election analyst can't hide his disgust, his disappointment, his utter disdain for the flawed electoral process. Look how he reacts when he learns about missing Milwaukee USB sticks.
I guess the exact thing, yes, is if 5 of the USB sticks were missing results from the election, so then they have to go try to re-grab them. All the folks behind the scenes are talking about this as well, so we can also look. It's unfortunate.
The folks behind the scenes here, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, he's probably thinking, how can I analyse this revelation without sounding like a Trump supporter advocating for election integrity? Let's bring in documentary filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, the electoral process in the States is flawed. There is too much room for shenanigans. What are the chances that the Save America Act will become law?
Yeah, by the way, that was a really incredible piece of footage to watch. I mean, really, you could see it in real time, that frustration that he had. Look, the act is on life support, unfortunately, and I need Democrats to better explain to me what their issue is with this thing. It's really unbelievable. They're pushing back against something that makes so much sense. Look, nothing is more existential to this country than the faith that people have in our voting process. And when you take that away, you have real significant problems. You hollow out the faith and integrity of the electoral process. We have a real problem on our hand. And whether or not it be perception or reality really isn't actually even that important, because the perception is what matters. That's what ends up bringing people and having people get upset and become skeptical about whether or not their votes count. Look, we just recently had this revelation that this was admitted by the New Jersey government, 6,000 people who are non-citizens were put on their voter rolls. This is a problem. The DHS also recently said that they calculated that 250,000 people between New Jersey and California, Nevada, and Pennsylvania were added non-citizens to the voting rolls. And what was incredible was to watch the Democrats push back on that. They didn't say, okay, this is a massive problem, let's find a way to fix it together. They said, well, that's probably an exaggerated number. There's some false positives. Maybe it's 90% to 50% true. I don't know. I'm not good at math, Rita, and I was told to be no math in this interview, but 50% is still over 100,000 people who are on the voting rolls between those 4 states alone. And when you're talking about how Wisconsin in the last presidential election was won by less than 30,000 votes, you need to explain to me how this is not a problem, okay? And by the way, the Valhalla of all these Democrats is, why can't we be more like Europe? Let's be more like Europe, 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 Europe. Well, guess what? In Europe, the vast majority of all EU countries have voter ID laws. So I don't get the issue. I just don't.
Well, you've got to think, if this is hugely popular across the political spectrum, we've talked about this before, majority of Democrat voters want voter ID, majority of Republican voters want it. So why are the Democrats so staunch against this? There must be some benefit to them. Why else would you fight for a policy position that is so unpopular? But yeah, I think you're right. I think this Save America Act is on life support. Now, we are going to get to some serious geopolitical matters shortly, but I want to first play you a couple of clips of a fantastic interview with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, his wife Jeanette. This was with Katie Miller for her podcast. Now, you better hope Marco is getting plenty of carbs and sugar, or Paraguay could be in jeopardy.
At one time, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I tried this thing called keto. You've heard of this?
Yeah, keto.
Okay? And you just eat all this protein. And so you go through this massive withdrawal from sugar and carbohydrates for the first 72 hours. It was a near psychotic event for me.
It's true.
If I did this in this job, I would be in Mr. President, we must bomb, Paraguay. And it's like, why? I don't know. I'm just really mad I haven't had any sugar. So.
And the discussion around food was not limited to Marco Rubio's brief experience with keto. Here he is asked about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s strict diet.
The vice president says you have a big sweet tooth. I assume you haven't adopted RFK's diet of red meat and fermented vegetables?
No, this is a crazy diet. This is a diet that consists of eating sauerkraut and meat. Now, you understand, this is not a sustainable thing. You can't just walk into it,
Well, he sustains it because he does it.
Can you imagine? But he has to travel with coolers of sauerkraut. I'm not going to travel the world with a cooler full of sauerkraut. It's ridiculous. I can't do it. It's not sustainable.
Are you Maha?
I'm in favor of Maha. I think people should be healthy.
No, he is not.
But I think ultimately, at the end...
He is completely not.
What's he eat?
Pop-Tarts.
No, I don't eat Pop-Tarts every day.
Okay, you eat sweets.
The Pop-Tart is one of the great American innovations.
Katie Miller did a fantastic job there. What did you learn from that interview? Because there were very serious issues discussed as well, but I did love those lighter moments, really showed Marco Rubio and his wife, and they may be the first family one day, Army.
Yeah, President Rubio, I'm sorry, I mean Secretary Rubio, I apologize. What is wrong with the eating habits of this White House? The president only eats fast food, okay? Kennedy is eating the baseball diet. He's eating sauerkraut and beef, right? That's what he's doing. And of course,
coolers full of sauerkraut.
Yeah, that is insane. I'm sorry, that is unhinged, okay? By the way, I love a good fermented cabbage, okay? With some steak, no question about it, but he's traveling with that. It's crazy. And Secretary Rubio, Marco Rubio, is eating Pop-Tarts. What is with this administration and food? It's crazy.
It is a bit out there. And yeah, coolers full of sauerkraut. Possibly not practical, but you got to say RFK Jr. with his busy schedule manages to keep up that diet. Now, we learned earlier today that after more than 20-year presence, the US is going to be withdrawing its last troops from Iraq by September 30. Army, the US military has been in that country since the 2003 invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein. Tell me about the timing of this withdrawal.
Yeah, we're going from Pop-Tarts to geopolitical threats. Don't tell me I don't have range, yes. Rita, okay? Yeah, Iran, okay, obviously Iran is the greater threat, and obviously this withdrawal is in a sense a reflection of that. And by the way, in terms of why we were there to begin with, keep in mind that we were invited by the Iraqi government to come back into Iraq because of the threat of Islamic State, of ISIS. And that this president did an absolutely incredible job in his first term, wiping out Islamic State when no one else could do it. They laughed. I remember there was a whole Saturday Night Live skit when the president said the first thing I'm going to do is wipe out ISIS. There was a whole skit about how is he going to do it? He has no idea, right? And that's exactly what he did within basically the first year of his administration. So they're no longer a massive threat. And I think that our Kurdish allies and the Iraqi allies can do a lot of the cleanup that is necessary for Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. But I think that what we've done there is the main threat there are the Iranian-based militias that are still in Iraq. And that was kind of the main threat that the Iraqi state and the American troops have to combat. But we have done an incredibly good job training their soldiers, building up their military infrastructure for this exact thing, to be able to deal with this threat on their own. And I expect that they will. I think what you're going to see is the troop replacement, the troops being replaced by these economic and security bilateral agreements. And that's far more robust, far more important, and will withstand the test of time than American troops there. I think we've done an incredible job there as well. And I also want to point out that the difference between this and Afghanistan, right? In Afghanistan, there was no plan. In Afghanistan, we left a state that was in complete disarray, which is retaken within days by the Islamic radicals of Afghanistan. This is a completely different situation. As opposed to Afghanistan, we have built up the Iraqi military and economic infrastructure for them to deal with the stuff on their own. Additionally, we have a partner with the Peshmerga. We have a partner with the Kurds who've done a great job assisting us in these issues. So I feel confident that yes, the timing, one can argue the timing with happening in Iran now, but ultimately this is what would have to have been done. I think he's done a great job in Iraq.
Well, yeah, you're so right about the contrast with Afghanistan, that chaotic withdrawal under the Biden administration, hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment, arms left to the Taliban, who took over the country within days. It really was just one of the lowest points in American foreign policy. Now, before you go, we've heard today that White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is going to be departing her role at the end of the month. She wants to spend more time with her young family. She's got 2 children under 2 years of age. This is a crucial position in the administration, Army. How are they going to go, particularly leading up to the midterms, with a newbie in that role? I know they've got a few candidates, but it is a role she has served remarkably well, despite the fact that she is young. She's under 30 when she took that role. Yeah, she was 27. And yeah, look, obviously it is. Look, it's the most front-facing White House position that exists. Like you said, it's an absolutely crucial role. And by the way, it takes time for somebody, even somebody who like her, it takes time to get up to speed, get your sea legs under you. It's not something you jump into. Even initially, when she first had the job, I thought, she had some moments that were great, some moments that were not so great. It takes time to grow in that role. With the midterm elections, I think the timing might be a little bit off. But look, I think the president has a big bench, a large bench, a significant bench of people who can take over that job. But I understand. Look, it is one of the most incredibly demanding jobs that exist in the White House. I've had friends in that role and friends who supported that role. And you're up before 6 a.m. and you get home no earlier than 7 or 8. Sometimes you're there till midnight, sometimes all night. It is stressful and demanding intellectually and on your body. So people tend not to last particularly long in those roles. And, I think it was also curious is, she said she wanted to leave and spend more time with her very young children. And I was watching CNN and they had this whole thing about this pushing of trad wives, right? Traditional wives in the White House and demeaning people who want to play that role. And I was like, God, what is wrong with you people? Here's somebody who is an ultimate professional, right? She's been in the workforce, continues to be in the workforce, and you're demeaning her role and want to go spend time with her family. What is wrong with these people? And by the way, one last point I didn't mention about Kennedy. I've got to say, though, yes, I think he's got this crazy diet, but I got to say, the man looks good. So who am I to say, right? Army, the haters can get stuff. She has done an incredible job. And of course, she wants to spend time with her children with the crazy hours that job requires. And some of those press secretaries have gone on to great things. In Trump's first term, he had Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and she's now the governor of the great state of Arkansas. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Still to come, Rosie O'Donnell tattoos her child's pronouns on her wrist. Kinsey Schofield will have all your entertainment and royal news. Welcome back. Well, Rosie O'Donnell is still in Trump's America. I miss the days when she was saying insane things from Ireland, you know, the country she fled to when Donald Trump was elected again. But she's back in the US doing any podcast that will have her. And on Amy Poehler's pod this week, she made this shock admission that when her daughter decided to identify as a plural, a they, them, Rosie got a tattoo to mark the occasion so she'd never forget.
When they first told me that it was they, them, I tried my best, but I kept saying she. And so I took her to my cousin's tattoo shop with the they in her handwriting, and I had it tattooed on my wrist so that I would never forget, that it would remind me. And I thought she'd be very touched, and she didn't give two She could not care less. And I just said she. I just did it again.
Joining me now is host of the Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered podcast. Kinsey, I don't even know what to say anymore.
I'm old-fashioned. I use Post-it notes, not permanent ink. I do, though. I miss when movie stars had mystique. We knew what they wore to the Oscars, not every thought that entered their head. Rosie has become especially guilty of oversharing lately. It's a perpetual audition for what we don't know. At this point, everything I've learned about Rosie O'Donnell is against my will. But to your point, she's back. Apparently, Ireland wasn't in the market for a, fresh-faced 64-year-old woman with Trump derangement syndrome. So it does look like she's looking for work. Otherwise, they can't justify how much she's in our face lately.
No, and I do also miss the days when she would tell us about her therapist advising her to stop obsessing and posting about Donald Trump, and she could not. She even went on air to say, I'm going to stop, and I think she lasted 24 hours. She cannot help herself. Now, Bill Gates' daughter, Phoebe, has been accused of cookie stuffing at her multi-billion-dollar startup, Fear. Cookie stuffing involves dropping more web cookies than it should, taking undue credit for online sales at retail partners. Kinsey, tell me about this. It sounds like it's just a business practice, but it's an illicit business practice and comes with huge penalties.
So basically, yeah, it's like when you post a link because you're going to get some sort of commission, for what you're wearing, and you post a link and you get X amount of commission based on how many people shop your closet. It's something to that effect, except it's on a grand entrepreneurial scale because she's Phoebe freaking Gates. And we expect her to have some moral clarity, considering the fact that, her dad had such a huge hand in the development of the web. But we are in the accusations phase. Nothing's been proven yet. It's an extraordinarily adorable name for an allegation with potentially very serious consequences, like 20 years. Will she actually face them? Probably not when your dad's Bill Gates. But, she doesn't need the money, which makes this story even more bizarre, taking credit for things she didn't do and basically padding her resume, padding her success so she look more appealing to investors and to people that might want to throw her on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine.
Now, we spoke earlier in the week about some of the strange rules Howard Stern staffers had to follow while working under the famed radio host. Now, insiders have told the Sun newspaper that female employees were not allowed to wear sneakers into the office, but male employees could. Kids, this is outrageous. They were reportedly instructed to have certain shoes at the ready in case higher-up executives walk through the office.
Right. I mean, Howard Stern spent decades presenting himself as the great rebel against corporate America. And apparently behind the scenes, he was running the Devil Wears Prada For a dude who built his career offending absolutely everybody, he apparently draws the line at women wearing comfortable footwear. So shock jocks are fine, but shock crocs are not. Nope, that's against the rules.
You know what? I don't have a problem with a workplace imposing those sort of dress codes, saying no sneakers, no jeans, whatever. But you can't just apply it to one gender. I mean, come on, that is just out of bounds. This story took me by surprise. The Daily Mail reporting that Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston are secretly talking again, perhaps more than talking. The former golden couple divorced in 2005 after 7 years together. Kinsey, one source said that Brad Pitt has been popping up on the morning show set at least once a week for a standing lunch date in Jennifer Aniston's trailer. What do you say to that?
I mean, 21 years later, and we're still trying to put Brad and Jen back together. We America, we're the clingy ex. This is a weird story because we're also seeing Jen with her current boyfriend, the weirdo hypnotherapist and life coach who can't even pay his rent, but he's going to coach us in life. Brad also seems crazy about his gorgeous jewelry designer girlfriend, who we saw him recently with her at the World Cup. So I don't know what to believe. Do I think the public would welcome such a reunion? I do. Do I think Brad deserves a second chance? Absolutely not.
I'm 100% there with you. And just on Jen Aniston's latest flame, tell me about the concerns her friendship group has about this character, because you're right, his net worth is basically nothing. They were recently holidaying on a yacht that was reportedly costing about $500,000 a week. I mean, he's living a lifestyle that is completely out of his reach.
Yes, maybe he does believe in manifestation because he manifested Jennifer Aniston, and we all are amazed at that. But he's had trouble paying his rent in New York City. I believe he had to give up his apartment in New York City. She put him on the map. There are people that are literally taking this guy seriously, and he has this credibility now that he didn't have before because of Jennifer Aniston. And his friends her friends are saying, is she your sugar daddy? What are you doing for her? Are you using our friend? And there are real concerns about what he actually brings to the table in this relationship.
Now, Meghan Markle appears to have been snubbed by David Foster in a viral red carpet moment. Meghan appears to reach out her arm to him, but he walks straight past her. He then joins the photo and gives Harry a smile. Kinsey, are people reading too much into this? I think sometimes when it comes to Meghan, they're just wanting for her to fail because, well, she's so unlikable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. I'm usually perfectly happy to criticize Meghan Markle, but I disagree with this internet observation. That does not look like an attempted handshake to me. Meghan looks like an air traffic controller trying to land David Foster in the group photo. She's gesturing towards the photo. He walks into the photo and then he smiles at Harry. There are plenty of legitimate awkward Meghan Markle moments. I don't want to manufacture one. If anything, Meghan looks like she's directing traffic. She's one fluorescent vest away from working valet. That's how I feel when I watch this video.
Kinsey, before you go, TMZ's reporting that Sean Diddy Combs has been released from solitary confinement following his alleged prison brawl. It's unclear whether Diddy will face any additional time from this fight. Kinsey, what more can you tell me about this case? Is the investigation into this whole ordeal over? Because we were told there were some very rich and powerful people participating in these freak-off parties and there's been no other arrests.
I think if we contacted those investigators, they would tell us it's an active investigation, so they can't comment on it. Do I believe it's still an active investigation? I really don't. I think that they've kind of, shut the books on this. And Diddy is the one that's taken the brunt of it. And that's not even very much. I mean, his release date keeps inching closer and closer. So I think you're going to have a lot of people upset the day he is released, because we're going to look at each other and say, what about that little black book? What about all of those celebrities we heard that participated in this too? Is anybody going to get justice here?
Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time tonight. And that's it from me. Up next, it's Late Edition. Good night.